Hello, everybody. Hi. Uh, it's me and Kyle today. We're here to do talky talk things because, that's what we do. Let me make sure you guys can hear me. Kyle, say something?
I'm gonna say something and a lot of stuff and things.
There we go. Alright, so they should be able to hear both me and you, in theory. I don't know if we have anyone in chat to confirm that at this exact moment. But,
I
hi!
could I could hear both when I turned on your stream. So
Perfect. That means if you keep that on, then you're just going to be able to hear. Hello? Oh, you're confirming that you can hear us, which you already did by asking, what are you confirming?
what am I confirming again, guys? Listen, hey,
Wonderful.
hey,
Perfect.
listen.
Oh, God. That's a sound option. Fun fact. I did not pick it because it is the single most annoying thing I've ever heard from a video game.
I have not heard the new sounds, but I'm looking at them now.
Michael and oh no, he has not heard my new sounds. Do you want to take him on a tour through my new sounds?
Mata Mata.
We do have Mata Mata.
I need healing. Mata Mata. Do you have a Hammond?
I do.
Error. Profanity filter enabled. Overwatch heroes screaming. Oh boy.
I love that one. Oh no, which one is he playing?
Jesus Christ.
I can identify half of them. Roundabout. Oh
Be Tracer.
I'm already Tracer.
What about Widowmaker?
I'm already Widowmaker.
I'll be Bastion.
Nerf Bastion.
You're Rental
no.
Winston.
Seriously
I
though,
wanna
Nerf
be
Bastion.
Winston.
I can still be Genji.
I'm
Yes.
already Genji.
Then I'll be McCree.
I already chose McCree.
I have an idea.
What's your idea?
You should be.
I'm not gonna be Mercy.
Oh god, I feel that in my soul. Michael asked me if I had seen the whole thing, and I said no, so then I sat down
Oh
and watched
no.
the whole thing.
You watched the entire thing? Yeah.
I loved it. It was, I mean, it's a product of its time, very much
Yes.
so, but I loved it. Um,
There's Crab Rave.
Yep, Crab Rave is
I'm
there
happy.
now.
I'm happy that Crab Rave is here.
Yeah. Michael was there when I picked all of them. Well, almost all of them. Michael helped me pick all of the Overwatch ones, and a
Ooh.
couple of the others. But I got super sidetracked. Hi everybody. Kyle and I are here to Bob, do something. But it looks like Boo.
Bob, do something.
There it is.
There it is.
Kyle and I are here today to have a conversation about trauma and like heavy emotional topics and that kind of thing, and how you portray them in media and different kinds of media, because we come from different media backgrounds. For anybody who doesn't know,
I need healing.
It's already begun.
I knew this one was coming. I knew that he was going to do this because he cracked jokes about every time we play Overwatch from here on out when I'm on stream playing Genji, just so that he could hit me with I need healing. That's,
You know what we need?
it was
You know what
applicable,
we
you're
need?
right. What do we need?
You know, your Huckleberry.
So, anyway, for anyone who doesn't know, I was an English major in college. I keep copies of Frankenstein and Hamlet by my bed pretty much at all times so that I can reference them when necessary, which is often, less often now than, went through every Overwatch thingy in Kyle. There wasn't one. That's true. So I come from a heavy, heavy literary background. I also come from a background of having these exact kinds of conversations with my mother every time we watched a movie or a TV show, because my mom was an English teacher. So that's just kind of how my life has always been, is having these sort of deep dive conversations for no reason other than we could. Swing a da hammer! Yes. Kyle, do you want to explain why you're here and why you have a background that's relevant?
Yeah, oh god, it's the hero screaming that will be for 80,000 minutes. Hold on.
Yeah.
Another one. What was there was one that was 20 minutes long? What?
Oh my god, there was. I'll have to go back and find it later. It was so long. Oh, was it the kazoo one? I think it was the kazoo one.
Good lord.
It was the kazoo one. Anyway, Kyle, do you want to explain why you're here?
I'm here because it was Overwatch with a kazoo. Oh god, like the Overwatch theme song, but kazoo.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kyle. I'm here because I have a degree in film.
Kazoo Overwatch.
I'm done, guys. Okay, bye. I'm into the stream. Caroline can talk for herself. But I have a degree in film, in script writing. My background is in making visual media, and where Caroline is going to have the mental landscape of how do you do certain things like trauma well in a written form. I can talk about trauma and such things in a visual medium because they are two totally different mediums, if that wasn't obvious. And I say that sarcastically because a lot of people don't understand that still, and I don't know how. But yeah, that's why I am here. And yes, Michael is here, and his job is to derail us, which he does
Quite
fairly
well. Yeah.
Well, actually, like he's
So far, so good.
like, he is grandmaster, like top 500 in derailing our conversation.
To be fair, we're all ADHD enough to do that to ourselves, but then you add one of us not being in the actual conversation and just supplying distractions, and
Error. Profanity filter enabled.
and this is what happens. So, just a little bit of background on how we got here. We were, thank you.
I have no chill whatsoever.
It's fair and it's true about me, let's be honest. So we got here into this particular topic, into the idea of this stream, because we were in a call when one of my lovely friends, I don't think Tyus is watching right now, but if he is, hello dear. When one of my friends supplied me with the information that there's going to be oh god, why? A Marvel tabletop RPG game coming out in the next, what?
Why was there a big fuck off spider?
There's a Giphy option,
Oh, okay.
so that's why.
I just looked up and saw a big fuck off spider and I was confused.
Hey, it's Reaper. It's you.
Hey!
So we were supplied with the information that there's going to be a Marvel tabletop RPG, which then led us to a conversation about why and how all of that would be executed and that sort of thing, because it's kind of hard to have a level playing field. Oh my god. It's kind of hard to have a level playing field when you have characters like Jean Grey, and you also have characters like Frank Castle, which, if you guys are, it is very large. I should probably shrink it a little bit, actually. Just a little bit, so that it's not right in our faces. Um, so, all of the images that I had when I was, before the stream started, which actually didn't show up on there, so never mind, that wasn't relevant. Um, so anyway, that whole conversation led us to talking about Frank Castle specifically, and Frank Castle trauma, and then superhero trauma, and that kind of thing, and how then all of those things are handled differently through different mediums. Thank you very much for that. That is, in fact,
Hey.
Frank Castle. Also, side note, if you guys ever want to listen to us talk about our theories about the Marvel Tabletop RPG, we have a lot of them, and I think we would have a lot of fun doing that, but yeah, it's a lot. So,
It's time.
Groot! Aw.
Come up with a better name for your system.
Yeah.
I get why it's named what it is.
Well,
But come on.
we have a theory about why it's named what it is. We don't know for sure if it's gonna be what we think it is.
We don't know why, but it only makes sense.
Yeah. So, brief side note on that, and then we'll get into the actual topic. Marvel is doing a tabletop RPG where you can play and create superheroes and just kind of go up against villains however you want. Sounds like a great idea. They're creating their own system for it, and it's called the 616 system because Earth 616. And the only thing we can assume is that it's going to be a D6 based system. Because 616. They do have a writer, and I think the main writer for it is someone who has worked on D&D projects in the past. So that gives me a little bit of hope that it'll be at least moderately well done. But on the whole, my expectations are very, very low. Because until I can see it and work on executing it, I have very little faith in how well it's all going to work out. So trauma, and we're not necessarily just going to talk about trauma, we're going to kind of cover the gambit of emotional topics. It's just kind of easy to start with the broad spectrum topic of trauma. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
It's your show. I'm just here.
Alright, so I guess I'm going first. So the first example that I kind of want to talk about that I think is trauma handled fairly well in media is actually from one of my favorite books, actually my favorite book series ever, The Raven Cycle, which I have read pieces of on this stream before. I know a couple of you guys were kind of around for that. Haven't done that in a while. Probably won't pick that up for a while. Should, but you know, how does time work? So there's a character in that series. His name is his name is Adam Parrish, and Adam Parrish is
Doesn't like lamps.
No, Ronan doesn't like lamps.
Ronan doesn't like lamps. That's it. Okay.
Adam does like lamps. Adam just
Adam
likes
very
lamps
much
and
like-
other things.
Yeah, Adam very much likes lamps.
So, God, that's such a niche joke. God. Anyway, Adam Parrish is a character who comes from a very, very poor... Hi, Ari. Hello. Welcome. So glad you're here. I'm here just in time for me to talk about sad things, because that's a lot of what we're going to be doing tonight. Sorry, guys. Welcome. So glad you're here. Being late is never relevant unless it's a time-sensitive thing, but this is not. So, anyway, hi. So Adam Parrish comes from a very poor background, like lives in a double wide, and it's one of the nicest trailers in his neighborhood kind of deal. He comes from a place that is colorless in Virginia. So it's not green, it's not bright, it's not pretty, it's um it's very much like Adam, who came out of it. It's a sepia photograph. There's nothing there that really sparks joy or
Thank you. Thank you for going there.
there's nothing there that really sparks joy. There's nothing there that brings a lot of satisfaction to the people around it. The people there are muted and gray and sad. And Adam is very much trying to get out of that background. He is trying to become something bigger. He is incredibly intelligent. Yes. Marie Kondo, yes. But, Adam comes from not only a very sad and very poor background, but he comes from a heavily abusive background as well. Most of it is verbal, from what we're generally told, but there is not a lack of physical abuse in that as well. Also, trigger warning, we will be talking about a myriad of really, really heavy stuff in this stream. Everything from abuse to character death to how to handle, like how it's handled, and if anything is super graphic, we won't be getting into any details at all, but that's not to say that we will not touch on heavier topics. So please, if that is in any way triggering for you, please just walk away or close the stream. We will not be offended. What?
Ari just sent me a thing, and I am going to send it to you.
Yes. Please do.
Even though I have a deluxe edition, I want one.
Ari just sent it to me too. Ah! I need it. I need it.
Right?
I need it.
Even though I have like a deluxe, perfect, four-of-a-kind edition, I still want it.
I need it. Okay. Yes, much appreciated. I am glad that you shared.
Yes.
So, yeah, if you are triggered by anything that we begin to bring up, or you think you're going to be triggered by anything that comes up in this conversation, please feel free to walk away. We will not be upset. We will not be offended. I always appreciate views, and we always appreciate views, but your health and safety are infinitely more important than any of that. So please prioritize yourself first. There will be topics that we will avoid exclusively because of me and my mental health. So, anyway. Adam is a victim of abuse, and that kind of comes to a peak at the end of the second book, or the first book, rather, where Adam is being driven home by one of his friends, Ronan, and he gets home too late, he gets home past curfew, and his father comes out to get him, and I believe he kind of shoots back with something when his father says something, and he gets clocked. And not only does he get clocked, he gets hit so hard he falls and smacks his head on a metal railing, and he goes deaf in one ear as a side effect of that, which the symbolism of that is so important, but we're not here to talk symbolism necessarily, so I'm not super gonna get into that, but oh boy. Which then turns into a fight because Ronan is not all the way down the road yet, and Ronan comes back and kicks Adam's dad's ass quite hard. And it's also the moment where Adam decides to press charges. The really key thing about this moment, though, is that this is where Adam both gains and loses his agency. Because he chooses to press charges against his father, which is something he has actively fought against in every other previous scenario, because he couldn't afford to not be at home. But now that it's come to this, and now that he knows he will not be welcome at home, He has no other choice. And it's a really interesting and really well done example of how trauma in and of itself both gives and takes away agency. Because there's this part of trauma where something terrible and horrible and for so many different reasons, trauma can just be absolutely horrendous and gut-wrenching and like borderline apocalyptic for some people. And it's terrible, and it takes away something from you. Trauma will always take something from you, whether that's a sense of safety or mental stability in some cases, or physical abilities in some cases. There's a lot of different ways that it can present itself. But it also in some ways provides you with a line, right? And you go, I'm never crossing this line again. And is it always easy to not cross that line? Absolutely not. But trauma will provide you with a line where your mind, your body, your entire being goes, no, no more, we're done, stop it, stop right now. And that can manifest in a lot of different ways. It can be really, really, really unfortunate. But with Adam specifically, it manifests in him taking agency, in demanding, well, in self-sacrifice, kind of. He gives up his own life, effectively, not literally, he doesn't die. But he gives up his life to a sentient forest, effectively. It sounds kind of funny. But he gives up his agency and his life to this sentient forest, effectively. He says, let me be your eyes, let me be your hands. And he gives up the life he had before and his trauma and the agency and lack thereof that he had before in order to take on a new sense of agency and a new life going forward, which is fantastic. You end that book going, okay, Adam's kind of made a choice, finally. He has been so indecisive for so long. Spoiler alert, he's queer, so indecisive is part of it. But Adam has finally made a choice. He's finally taken self-control. He has agency. Well, not totally. Not totally. So he gave up he gave his life to the sentient forest, and the sentient forest in a very PTSD-like fashion and in a very trauma-like fashion begins to interpose what could almost be made into flashbacks. They're not, but they're sort of like memory flashes and triggers from the forest itself that Adam has no recollection of, and they begin to kind of overlay with his day-to-day life. There's a moment where he sees something out of the corner of his eye, and he turns to look at it, and he's just cross-faded effectively into a completely different situation. Instead of being in his bedroom, he's in a forest, and instead of being in the shower, it's rain. And it's a really interesting and really well done parallel to what you experience in PTSD, in various other mental incapacitating situations. Bipolar disorder and other things like that can also result in flashbacks of that nature. But PTSD is kind of PTSD and complex PTSD are the two that kind of really heavily carry that weight and that connotation. The Raven Cycle all the way through does a really good job of kind of taking each character and their trauma. Adam is just the one that I remember the best in this particular scenario because I've read the first and second book more recently than I have some of the others. And kind of using mystical and magical scenarios in order to parallel the sort of realistic alternatives to what would be happening, like the memory flashes and the sort of inherent loss of self, because there are times when Adam just genuinely doesn't have control of his body anymore, and there are times when he starts stumbling across quests that aren't really put there by himself, but he has to take care of because that's what the forest wants him to do. And that's what Cabe's Water is asking him to do, and that sort of plays into the idea of recovery and mental health journeys as well, because it's not always what you want to do, and it's not always how you want to do it, but the road to recovery is complicated as fuck. I just lost Kyle. There we go. Your camera froze for me, and I
Oh.
wasn't sure if it was my internet glitching or what.
Nope, I'm here.
But, so yeah, that's my first ramble, I guess. Although well, no, go ahead. Go ahead. Your turn.
What?
No.
My
I
turn?
was, yeah, your turn.
I mean, in my head, the easiest way to, or the big thing that I was thinking of when it comes to trauma in a medium or in a visual medium, and I know like we have talked about this before, was, I mean, spoiler alert, I know it's been 20 years or whatever, but the Buffy episode where her mom dies is a perfect representation of how to do something traumatic in a visual medium damn near perfectly. Say what you want about the creator and director, we won't get into that, but
We've discussed that
that-
before on this channel.
that one episode is almost perfect in the visual medium that it is. Because
I'll be
in a lot of
Tracer.
ways,
I'm already
and I think a lot of
Tracer.
people
What about
kind of
Widowmaker?
Hold
don't
on.
Already
understand.
Widowmaker.
I'll be Bastion.
Nerf Bastion.
You're right, so Winston.
I wanna be Winston.
I guess I'll be Genji.
I'm already Genji.
Then I'll be McCree.
I already chose McCree.
I have an idea.
What's your idea?
You should be.
I'm not gonna be Mercy.
There we go.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes. In a show that is based around a host of topics and issues and cultural norms and going through that and all of that, I think that is without a doubt the perfect episode. Other than Once Upon a Time or Once More with Feeling, but we won't get into that. But even then, Once More with Feeling, the end of Once More with Feeling deals with hella trauma and how you have to react to that in a way of, and I just realized this, or I didn't just realize this part, but the connection in the aspect of something terrible happened, you kind of got through it because your people thought that it was terrible, and then you come to realize that it wasn't terrible, that it's exactly what you wanted, and they pulled you out of that, and now you have to deal with being back to where you were when you didn't want that to begin with. But her mom's death episode, I think, is fantastic in many ways, mostly because for the majority of that entire episode, there's no non-diegetic sound. There's no sound that does not happen in the scene, which is what diegetic sound is. So if, for all of those who don't know, you have two kinds of sounds when it comes to a visual medium. It's diegetic and non-diegetic. Non-diegetic is very much like the score or the music or stuff like that. Diegetic sound is something that happens within the scene. A lot of times, especially now, directors in movies and visual media use diegetic sound non-diegetic sounds in diegetic ways. So it's just like, oh yeah, this scene needs to have a score, it needs to have some kind of song or something in the background. They'll actually just put it there and then have the character walk over to like a radio and turn it off, and as soon as they turn it off, the sound is gone. That's diegetic sound. Everything within the first majority of that episode doesn't have any of that. There's no score, there's no sweeping, emotional, gut-wrenching music when she finds her mom, because that's not what happens in real life. Like, there's nothing, and there's absolute silence, and you have to sit there and listen, I guess you could say, to nothing. Like, you hear the birds, and there again, it's perfect because it's not a rainy day, because you know how Full Metal Alchemist is the one with this. When Hughes dies, it's raining. When they go to his funeral, they put him in the ground. It's kind of overcast, and even Mustang is just like, oh, it's a terrible day for rain when it's bright and sunny. There's none of that. There's no. It's bright. It's sunny. The birds are chirping. It's bright in the morning. It's early. It's hey, everyone's got to go to school, and then you get hit with it, and I think the difference in visual media and written media is the way you would kind of describe and transpose that. In visual media, I'd say it's a little easier, but it's also harder because, in a lot of ways, it's easier because you can overdo it. And I think a lot of visual media does overdo certain things. Oh boy, I hear. There it is. I think visual media has not a problem per se, but I think it is overdone in the if you want to make sure that your audience understands that this is a hard-hitting, or is supposed to be a hard-hitting scene, you put it very on the nose. The Last of Us does this fantastically as well, and again, I'm not going to say anything, but it's been a few years. If you haven't played that game, you probably should. The giraffe scene and the They Didn't Suffer scene are the two, I think, best forms of showing emotion in a visual medium done well. Because in the giraffe scene, which for no one who knows, you go through a whole bunch of shit. The world is fucked in The Last of Us. You're starting to get really close to these characters. Ellie open up to Joel. They're starting to become a little bit more a cohesive unit. And Ellie at this point is like 14. She has been within this ruined city her entire life. Everything is terrible. And she sees giraffes for the first time. They go to like Cincinnati, and she comes around the corner, and this herd of giraffes is there because they broke out of the zoo. And there is music, but it's very slow and quiet, and like it's not a kind of thing. It's just there is this 14-year-old who has never seen a giraffe in her life in a world that is completely fucked. Especially because like the last thing you did was have to go through like this bandit checkpoint where you have to kill everyone because they want to kill you. And it's just this. Joel doesn't say anything, she doesn't say anything, he just stands there and lets her go and giraffe. In the opposite of that, the gut punch, oh god, why? You're in the sewers, you find like home, I don't want to say homeless because like everyone's homeless in this, but like you find an encampment, and it's not a thing that it points you to. It is not it is not something that you have to go to and everyone will see every time you play the game. It is just if you have a looting problem like I do and you're scouting through, you turn a corner and there's this room. And there's nothing special about it. The music doesn't pop, doesn't hit, it doesn't do anything. But you see a dead body up against the corner, and on the floor or on the walls it says they didn't suffer, and you can tell that you're like, okay, they didn't suffer, interesting, whatever, until you look beside this corpse and there's a crib with a blanket over it. And again, it doesn't hit you over the head with it. It doesn't. The music doesn't swell. Joel doesn't say anything. Like, none of the characters are like, oh fuck, or oh that's fucked up, or I can see what they're doing. It's just there. It's just there. You turn the corner, you see the words, and you're like, I wonder what that means. Oh. And it's like, that is, I think, a fantastic way of doing it, even if some parts of the audience aren't going to get it.
Yeah.
You know, they say, show. Is that realistic? I think it is. They tell you, you know, they're called movies. You know, the talking pictures. To show and not tell. You show your audience, you don't tell them. Exposition is incredibly boring when it comes to, or it can be incredibly boring when it comes to visual media. We have all seen TV shows, and TV shows are really bad about this. TV shows, movies, video games, where it's just an exposition dump of this is what happened, and these are these two characters talking about something that just happened, even though we saw this thing just happen because we needed to make sure that the audience knows that X, Y, and Z happened. And it goes on for too long, and you're like, okay, pick it up, let's go. Like, we gotta fucking on. But I think that's the difference between our two forms of media. Of Caroline's form of media, it's easier to do that. It's easier to kind of expedition dump in a way, even though it can go long. Looking at you, J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yeah.
I will say this with my full chest: if J.R.R. Tolkien was alive today, those books would never be made.
I don't disagree.
Putting that out now. But I think the difference is how you can communicate the emotion that you're supposed to do
Yes.
correctly.
So much wandering through
wondering,
trees.
so much wandering through trees and describing what those trees look like.
Looking at you, Aragon. Just fucking
Looking-
saying. I understand that he was young when he wrote those books, but god fucking damn it, you don't need 7 pages to describe a lake that isn't fucking relevant ever.
Yes.
It's fine.
Yes. Precisely.
I think, to touch on the Buffy episode specifically really fast, the thing you couldn't, Michael, I can't even read them. Your attention span would not allow you to.
Okay. Here, put it to you this way. I've read those books, that series, twice in my entire life.
Yeah.
I've read that series twice. Once when I was dog sick and there was nothing else for me to read, and I went through the entire trilogy within like 2 weeks because I was not in school. And 2, when I was older and was like, I'm a little bit older, I think I can get through these a little bit easier, and spent a weekend reading them, and you just couldn't. You just couldn't. They're really good. Don't get me wrong. Those stories are really good.
Mm-hmm.
It is a fantastic, and this hits on the trauma thing. It is a fantastic, heroic telling of a group that did not get their hero's moment.
Yeah.
Because that's all it is. That's all it is.
Yeah.
That's all. Like, at the basis of The Lord of the Rings, it is Tolkien giving his friends who were in World War One the hero story that they deserve, because they didn't, because they all died in the war.
Yeah.
It is a man who knew history and knew that England as we know it don't have a true historical legend, because the Saxons and all of the stories of like the Arthurian legends and all those are Saxon things. Those aren't English. Those are Saxon myths. England doesn't have that, and so he combined the two things that he wanted, which was all of his friends, because World War One was supposed to be the war to end all wars. It was supposed to be the Great War. Hell, it's called the Great War. Everyone was supposed to have their hero's moment. Everyone was supposed to come back with medals and stories and glory, and every single one of his friends died. And they didn't get that. They didn't die heroically. They didn't die in the way that everyone assumed that everyone would die in the Great War. They just died. So he came back and went, well, my country doesn't have this, like, legend, this grand story, and neither did my friends, so I'm going to create it, and
Yeah.
you shall not pass. Exactly.
It's I respect the art of Lord of the Rings, and I respect the sentiment behind Lord of the Rings, because I think those are both very beautiful things. I think that Lord of the Rings, the books as well as the movies, do some things incredibly, incredibly, incredibly well. And as my father, who fucking adores the Lord of the Rings, unsurprisingly to literally anyone who has heard me talk about my father ever,
That makes sense.
as my father has reminded me many, many, many a time, it's about the journey. It's about how you get where you're going, and it's not necessarily about what happens once you get there. And that's totally fair, and it's very well executed, it's very well done. It is not a story that is for everybody, particularly in novelization. It is not a story that is easy to sit down and read. I struggle. I own all of them, and I have never finished any of them. Just because they take so long to get where they're going, and my ADHD brain cannot handle it. It's absolutely beautiful in places, and it's incredibly well done, and it's a very good hero's journey kind of story without the satisfactory ending. It has a satisfactory ending, but it's less about the ending than it is how you get there, which I think is not how a lot of modern hero's journey stories go. So
Oh yeah, it's like the ending. You realize at the ending. Again, spoiler alert. The book's been out for 50 years. The ending of Lord of the Rings is you go back home, and you're
And-
surrounded by people that don't know what you did, that don't care
yeah,
what you did.
yeah,
Nothing really changed
but
for
you did.
those back home, but you did.
Yeah,
And again,
yeah,
the trauma response of, and here's a good thing. In the books, it's done. In the movies, it's a little bit done. It's done a little bit better because in the movies, at the end, when all the hobbits go back to the Shire, and no, we didn't get to see the scouring of the Shire and all of that, right? But at the end of everything, the Shire goes back to normal after all of the atrocities that it had gone through, and the people there just went back to their normal lives. And the hobbits of the Fellowship in the movie, as they're sitting there at the Green Dragon, and everyone is talking about pumpkins and growing and pipeweed and all of the stuff that they're doing, you see the Fellowship hobbits look at each other with the look of, veteran warriors of we've seen some shit, and no one in this building, no one in this town will understand it, no matter how much you explain it.
Well, and one of the really interesting things that I picked up on when I was really young, because I was very young when I saw Lord of the Rings the first time. I was a child, very small child. Those movies came out in early 2000s?
Yeah.
I was like 5. I know, I'm making you feel old.
Saw the first one in theaters.
Yeah, I know. So did my dad.
And
One
my
of the
parents wouldn't go see the other two with me because they didn't know it was a trilogy.
Yeah, because you were a dick about it. Anyway, one of the things that I picked up on watching the third one that was done really well because it went unsaid, but it was still felt, was that everything that everybody else was talking about, all of the pumpkins and the pipeweed and all of those other things, they're not completely irrelevant to the hobbits' lives anymore, but they're never going to mean the same things that they did before, and they're never going to mean this or carry the same weight that they do for everybody else. ever again. And there's a sort of alienation that comes from that, and you can tell in that scene because it's so well executed, because everybody else is animated and talking, and it's a very loud room in that scene, and the four of them just sit at their table and they don't speak and they don't have to, and that's it. That's all that happens. And I remember the last movie came out in what, 2008, 6,
Yeah.
something like that. So I was 10, or a little, somewhere around 10. I'm the same age as Michael, for the record, so he's older than me by a couple months. So
2003.
2003 was when the last one came out?
Yep, Return of the King came out in '03.
Wow. Okay, so I was very small. I must have seen it a little bit after that then.
Because it was 2001, 2002, and 2003. Because they filmed them all.
Oh, they
at
filmed
the
them all
same
at the same
time.
time. Right. Yes, we do call them cradle robbers again, because they are cradle robbers. Um, where was I going with that? Oh, yeah. To successfully kind of establish that feeling and to make that point in a way that someone who's 10 can understand what's happening in that scene without having any sort of real context for what those emotions and those situations really are. Because especially, I was a heavily, heavily sheltered child. Again, for anybody who's not aware, I was deeply, deeply sheltered by my very religious parents. And so to lack not only the normal, I mean, that'll work. To for someone who lacks the not only the like age understanding, because I was like 10 or younger when I saw these movies, but to also lack just the world wherewithal to understand really what war was and what coming back from war looked like. Like, I had family who was in the war and wars that came after 9/11. I have family in the military, but I still didn't really understand what was happening around me because I was a child. But to be able to watch that scene and to understand at such a young age that that was what was happening, that there was this sense of self-isolation, and that whether it was intentional or just sort of the byproduct of what they had experienced, and honestly probably both, that's an incredibly well done sequence and an incredibly well done scene to be able to communicate that to so simply to such a broad audience, because that takes a lot to get there. And I will commend Lord of the Rings for many, many things, and that is at the top of my list, is that its ability to communicate that sort of heavy, heavy topic to such a broad audience without having to be heavy-handed. Because they're not. It just happens, and then they move on. And I cried like the bitch baby I was the first time I watched that movie all the way through. I think I cried the last time I watched it too.
You did. I think that is the, how do I put this? I think that's the advantage that visual media has over written word. Like, written word, you can wax poetic about
Do
anything.
something!
Again, take Lord of the Rings for example. As much as we harp on it, Bob, do something. As much as we, rag on it, especially in 2K21, he, Tolkien waxed poetic about nature, because that's his bag. He hated industrialization. He hated what the Industrial Revolution was doing to his green country. Hated it, which is why the strongest fucking things in that entire series are nature creatures. They're forest imps and way here, the fucking falcon, all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can wax poetic about everything. Looking at you, Paulini, and your fucking lake. Uh,
Listen,
but that
I'm a
is,
poetry major and I still hate it.
oh yeah, no, but that's kind of the downfall that I think both of those forms have, because
Yeah.
you can also overdo it.
Well, and
You can
that's
also
sorry.
look at something and be like, this is important, and I want everyone to know that this is important. So, hey, make sure you know this is important.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's one of the things that I was actually kind of going to talk about, contrasting that Buffy episode that we were talking
Yeah.
about again,
Yeah.
is so many, and particularly dramas, TV dramas are super guilty of this, right? Like if you think about like Grey's Anatomy and stuff like
Mm.
that, they're particularly things that started in that same time frame in the like early to mid 2000s. There was always that kind of expectation and the norm of those really heavy emotional moments being undercut, or at least sort of emphasized by this really heavy, really whatever mellow indie music, right? That was a thing.
Yeah,
That was
that
a
was a
thing
thing.
for so long, and it still
Oh, yeah.
kind of is. But
Yeah.
um, there was a time period where that worked really well, and there was a time period where it was used sparingly, and it was used interestingly, and it was used with music that really hit the nail on the head of what they were trying to convey. And that still happens. There are moments, not to bring it to this, but there are moments in the Vampire Diaries, because I watched that emphatically for a couple years as a kid, or as a teenager, where they hit the nail on the fucking head with the song choices that they were using. And
The originals do it too.
yeah, where they make or break that moment with the songs that they choose. And I broke down sobbing in many, many a Vampire Diaries and Originals moment because of the song that they chose to put in the background.
Need God's passport.
But the beautiful, terrible thing about that episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer is that you are forced, no matter what you want, to listen to the life part of that episode. Because the thing, although it adds to the emotional swell and it does a good job of kind of bringing you full circle to where the directors and the music producers and everybody want you to be in that scene, the other thing that playing music under scenes like that can do is undercut the reality of what's happening, because it reminds you there's not a soundtrack to real life. That's not how this works. And so you are able to kind of experience that moment while also being able to acknowledge that music is the one way to get in a mood. Fucking mood. But while also undercutting the severity so that people can experience that moment without being deeply, deeply hurt by what's happening. Scenes that don't do that are the ones that tend to land the hardest. Great examples being that Buffy episode, because for so much of that episode there is no background music. There's nothing. There's no diegetic, or there's only diegetic sound. That's it. You only experience the birds chirping and the footsteps on the floor and all of that kind of thing. The hitches in
The
breathing.
Yeah.
The hitches in breathing, and yeah. And you just experience life, and there is no differential between what's happening on the screen and what actually happens when someone dies. And that is the beautiful, beautiful part of that. They do it really well in Bones as well. In the scene where Zack is outed for what he's done and for what he's participated in. For anybody who hasn't watched Bones or who hasn't watched Bones in a while, one of the favorite characters for the first couple seasons. Very nerdy, very literal, very intelligent. What they do with him perpetuates a lot of stereotypes that I have problems with, but that's not the point right now.
Early 2000s.
Early 2000s. He is logicked into and convinced to help the serial killer of one of their seasons. And the moment where it is revealed what he has done, I don't think there's any background music, but if there is, it is soft. There are no words. There is no nothing. And the people in that scene do not speak. It's just experiencing that moment, and it's just seeing the expressions on people's faces and the way people hold each other's hands and the way that they communicate without words what happened and what's gone on and who knows what. And it is stunning and gut-wrenching. And when I say every time I've seen that scene in my entire life, I've cried like a bitch baby, I am not lying. Every time I've seen that scene, I have cried like a bitch baby. And that scene first came on when I was like 11. No, younger than that. 2008? No, so I was 12. Okay. So I was 12 when that scene started. I was a child. And I cried forever. Holy shit.
Supernatural does that really well with Joe's death.
That's also true. That's
They do
also
that
true.
very, very well, because like that scene starts up like pure supernatural, boys and Joe and her daughter are there to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and everything goes wrong. And two characters that you love more than anything, one gets really, really hurt, and the music stopped.
Yep.
And it's just them talking and the emotions of going through it,
Yep.
and then it picks up a little bit, like this very like hint of music where they're hiding in the closet, when unfortunately the daughter dies first, and it kind of picks up and you see the emotions, and then the front door gets kicked in as the hellhound, who you can't see, shows up, and it goes just all quiet, and it's
Yep.
just Joe sitting there on a bomb,
Yep.
and her hair moves because the invisible hellhound is right here, and it's just a close-up of her face, and she's just like, well, I'll see you where we'll see you, you dirty bitch, or whatever she says, and she presses the button,
Yep.
and again, there's no music, there's no nothing, it is just pure emotion.
Yep. That's a really good one too. Honestly, and I'm gonna talk about this really briefly for another second. They did Joe so fucking dirty later
They did.
when they bring her back as a ghost
did.
for a different episode, and it so dirty. They did her so dirty. She deserves so much better. Not the point. Anyway. Another really good example.
Series should have ended after season 5.
Oh my god, you're not fucking joking. I have so many feelings about that.
I could talk about that entire series.
I could too. We could get on that one and harp for a while, so
Yes.
we're gonna
Yes.
skip past that.
You know what? Here's the thing. We need to. I think the next kind of talk that we do has to be about, because I know we've talked about this a shit ton of times, about when to end things, and when a writer and director has an idea, and no matter what anyone else says, they're going to do that idea no matter.
Oh, yep,
Huh.
yep. Oh, that's a. Cue my internal conflict over the one thing that comes up every time we have that conversation. I have so many goddamn feelings. I hate you.
I know.
Anyway, actually, I have consumed quite a bit of water in the last 30 minutes, and I really need to pee. So, gonna take a quick break while I go do that. And then I have another literary example of talking about trauma that we can go through really quick, and then we will see what happens from there. But, quick break. Be right back, guys. Don't go anywhere. I don't know. Hello, everybody. We're back. So, ow. So, another literary example that has coincidentally been recently turned into a TV show that I am actually
I
currently...
need healing.
Yep. That I have actually recently been watching and consuming. Six of Crows, which is another young adult novel or duology that I've read. The series, so I am gonna get into a couple things that may be spoilery for Shadow and Bone. I don't actually know because I haven't finished it yet, so I don't know how much detail they're going to get into. So slight warning for possible spoilers. One of the, I know Ari mentioned that they wanted to watch, so
Gotcha.
I will try to keep it as brief as possible, but it is not a particularly brief topic, so I apologize in advance. So the main character, or one of the main characters of Six of Crows, is named Kaz Brecker. And Kaz Brecker, God, he's a very Jax-esque character, for those of you who have any context for that. I just started bombarding me with Ben Barnes from that show. That's totally fair. Ben Barnes is incredible in that show.
Ben Barnes is incredible at everything he does.
This is true. He's playing the villain in this show, though.
Yeah, he is.
It's quite
Playing
interesting.
Darkling.
The Darkling, yeah. And I didn't know anything about, for the record, I didn't know anything about the first trilogy of the series, because I didn't read it, because the second one is better. Everyone I've talked to who's read both has said that the second one is better written, and so I have no interest in reading the first one. Anywho, also the first one is a lot more YA, love triangle, stereotypical YA kind of thing. Which the show seems to be doing slightly better. There's still love triangle, but less obnoxiously. And also intentionally making the age difference creepy. Thank God. Anyway, I have feelings about that particular topic. In Six of Crows, one of the main characters is named Kaz Brecker. He's called Dirty Hands. Dirty Hands, because he's not afraid to get his hands dirty and do whatever he has to do to get the job done.
I love him already.
I've read you excerpts of his
Yeah.
stuff before, and he's a very Jax-like character. He runs a gang, called the Crow Club, and,
Perfect YA name for a gang.
the club is called the Crow Club, and the group is called... I'm blanking. Not the point, though. Kaz Brecker always wears these leather gloves on his hand, which also plays into the Dirty Hands name, because there's all of these rumors about why he wears gloves all the time, and, Yeah. So, there's rumors that, he has actual literal monster hands. There's rumors that he has killed so many people that he can't wash the blood off of his hands. There's, all kinds of, interesting theory bullshit, because they live on the wrong side of town. Everything's run by various gangs, and it's just one of those, if you know, you know, and if you don't know, you don't know, but you do know to be scared of Kaz Brecker, who is 17 and one of the scariest people in the barrel, which is the name of the shitty side of town that they live on. The Dregs, that's what they're called. They're called the Dregs.
The dregs of the barrel?
Uh-huh.
Little on the nose, but I'm okay with it.
It's for a reason. They're amazing. I love them. So Um, Kaz Brekker wears these gloves all the time. And from the beginning of the book, you start to get these. You start to get Kaz's backstory, piece by piece, right? You find out he had an older brother named Jordy. And then you find out that Jordy's dead. And, like, every couple of chapters, you get a little bit more of Kaz's story. And as it goes on, it's leading up to this big heist that they're going to pull off, which is completely different in the TV show versus what's happening in the book. Which is, I don't know if they're going to eventually tell that story anyway, or what, because I know the show just got confirmed for season 2. So, who knows? So it's all leading up to this big mission, and it's one of those things where, like, they've planned for everything, but you also know going in, everything goes wrong. Something always goes wrong. And they know it in character as much as we know it out of character. Every plan that they make could go to shit, and they know that. But here's the thing. Kaz doesn't touch people. Ever. For any reason. And if he does, it's with the gloves on. As you start to get pieces of this story, as you start to learn who Jordy is, who Jordy was, that they ended up in the barrel after their father died, that Jordy was responsible for the both of them, that Jordy got a little ahead of himself. He was about, I think, 14 or 16, about the age Kaz is now, and he just got a little ahead of himself, and he made a deal with the wrong people. And as you start to learn this story, and as it starts to piece together, you get closer and closer to a situation where Kaz not only has to not wear his gloves, but he has to be in physical proximity to other people where they can touch him and he has no control over it whatsoever. Here's what you find out, like, the chapter where he has to start being touched by people. His brother died. Jordy died. And Jordy died of a disease that killed, like, half the barrel at the time. And it is a disease that rotted and bloated bodies. And Kaz got it and survived. Jordy did not. But because he was sick, and because he was laying next to Jordy's dead body, they threw him in with the other bodies to be burned. He was surrounded by the dead, rotting flesh of dozens of other people. And the only way he made it out, the only way he survived, was by using his brother's rotting, bloated, dead body as a floating device to get back to shore from this boat that they were taking him in. And since then, he has never touched another human person without the gloves on, because he can still feel what it felt like under his hands. And the whole book, piece by piece, leads you up to this climactic moment. You find out what happened, and then Kaz passes out in the back of a truck. Because he is in a situation where he is being touched by other people and he cannot control it, and all he can feel is the bloated, dead corpse of his brother under his hands. And the entire rest of the book, he is dealing with that, and with the loss of control, and with the display of failure. Thank you, Michael. The display of failure and of vulnerability that came with that moment. And only one person noticed, and only one person knows what happened, but that's one more person than ever knew before. And then she gets taken away at the end of the first book. And I'm still in the process of rereading the second book, so I don't remember what happens exactly. But Kaz, I mean, he can't touch people, and he doesn't touch people. And even after she has a vague idea of what's happening, he's in love with her. There's no getting around that part. He's absolutely and completely fucking in love with Inej, and anybody who says different can suck my dick, because they're wrong.
was like, really, Neil?
I have lots of feelings about this particular couple because they're very traumatized, the both of them, and I love them. Also, it's proven by the end of the second book that they're in love. It's just complicated. YA. But that one in particular, that and the Raven Cycle are both really, really good examples to me of well done trauma in series, because it's done in a way where it's not thrown in your face. It's not super like, hey, they're traumatized and here's why. It's, this character has this weird little quirk. And hey, this is part of this character's backstory that might link into it. And hey, here's another part of that story. And hey, here's part of it, but you're getting it out of order now. And by the time that character is then stripped of that quirk and stripped of their ability to be in control, you know why them being out of control matters. And personally, with some of the shit going on in my life right now, I can super identify with that moment of like, having somebody else take that sense of control away from me and having no idea how to function. And there's nothing you can do in those moments. And I never related to Kaz Brecker the first time I read that book. And I still don't super relate to Kaz Brecker because my god, Dirty Hands is... Yes, owl shit starts in 15 minutes. Thank you for the reminder.
I have a reminder set up, and it's just waiting. So
it starts at 8:30.
Yeah, 7:30 Pacific for the Excelsior Dragons match.
7:30 Pacific.
Watch point begins in 15 minutes, and then they'll talk for a little bit, and then they'll...
Gotcha. Okay, well, I'm gonna take a minute and cut that on. Apologies, friends. I'm already on everything. Gonna mute it and then minimize. So, anyway, that's another, I guess, method of talking about trauma, and heavy emotional topics in YA and in just sort of prose that's done very differently than it is in media and in visual media, because you can do the piece by piece thing, right? But there's something different about reading that moment and about reading about the feeling of somebody's undead, bloated corpse under your body versus watching it on screen. And honestly, I personally think that there's something way more revolting and more personal about reading about it, because it puts your brain there and there is no visual there already. You have to figure it out for yourself.
I think that's the best horror when it comes to visual media is when you don't see the monster. Like, A Quiet Place does this incredibly well.
I've never seen
where A Quiet Place does this incredibly well for a few things. One, that entire movie has no sound, like has no music to it whatsoever, because you're not really in the mindset of the daughter. You're more in the mindset of like the husband and wife, but their daughter is hard of hearing, they're deaf.
Yes.
And so everything in that movie doesn't have any music whatsoever. It's all sound design, all of it. But you don't really see the monster. Like, even at the beginning, spoiler alert for those who don't want to know, it starts off with their youngest child getting taken out. Because the kid wants a toy, and
I've seen that.
Toys make sound, and, well, he finds batteries, gets it taken, finds more batteries, presses the button, and the monster comes in. And for the majority of that movie, you don't really see them. And even when you do see them, it's fantastically done, because you're just like, I don't know what these creatures are, and we've just spent an hour and a half wondering what these things could look like, what these things can do, even though that we know that they've wiped out most of humanity. And like you said, in a visual media with Kaz, you could go through an entire season, an entire 10 to 14 episodes, um, kind of hinting that this is a thing, and doing it very well, of like him never interacting with people and him never touching anyone or always having gloves, and making a point of that without making a point of it.
Yeah.
Which again can be done incredibly well. Sixth Sense does it beautifully, where if you don't pick up on certain things, you never know the dude's dead until that moment.
Yeah.
But then when it gets to when you realize the actual reason why, you could do it one of two ways, in my head at least. One, you could do it almost like the animation way, because animation does this very well, where you have this idea, you set it up throughout however many seasons or however many episodes, and then it happens, and you have these quick flashback moments where it's pieced together really weird, and it's choppy and cut because you're in the mindset of someone going through something horrific, and you only see bits and pieces, and it's or, and I think that way's a little bit better, because it, like you said, in the written media, the prose form of it, when you're describing it, and it's all about descriptions, right? It's all about how it feels, how it smells, what it's like, and your mind has to come up with that. The quick cuts of thing makes your mind do that itself. Like, it's showing you, oh, this is why, but I'm not forcing, for a lack of a better word, I'm not forcing our hand and like showing this dude's hands inside the corpse of his brother and all the gunk and stuff. Like, that is, I think, the easy way out of showing it and being like, oh, that's gross. But at the same time, you're just going to be like, ugh, it's gross. Okay, whatever. The quick cut kind of things until you get to a point where, in this instance where he's floating, that's where you're able to slow everything down, and he's just there, and it's just water and breathing, and that's it. And then it cuts back to him in the truck freaking the fuck out.
Yeah. One of the things that I think, again, and I already just said this, but I think that prose and written media has over visual media is that sense of ambiguity, and is that sense of your imagination has to fill in the gaps. And that's kind of what those quick cuts accomplish as well, is it gives you just enough information that your brain fills in everything else. And the beauty of that is that it allows for that sort of ambiguity that written media has. But the downside to that is that sometimes if you're not specific enough, people get the wrong idea about what's happening, or don't get the idea at all. Yeah.
Because, like, it's the quick cut thing is done for a sense of urgency, for a sense of, I don't want to say shock, what's the word? Trepidation, or not understanding what is happening, which is the point. Like, in this case, if you are in that situation where you have to climb over the bodies of all of these dead people, your mind itself, because it's a traumatic event, is going to stop at a certain point. It's going to protect itself. You're going to almost disassociate, or you are going to disassociate. And so it's going to be choppy and weird, and you're not going to remember certain things until later. And you're right, that is the downside of a visual media, of you can do that, and it's done very well, and there are a host of things that do it very, very well, but you also run the risk of, one, people just blocking it out and just being like, it was 10 seconds of absolutely nothing. I'll use this, for example, Mass Effect, because I've been playing it. The first one where Shepard touches the Prothean beacon and gets the download from the Protheans. It's all done in quick cuts with very weird imagery. And you have absolutely no idea what. and where it is very much a this is weird, this is different, it's terrible because you get to see some pretty horrific things or things that could be construed as horrific. You really don't know anything about it, and you're like, what the hell just happened? And it's not until later when you meet with Liara and Lara does her like mind meld thing that 5 to 10 seconds of Kabbalah uh, goes into like a 30-second thing, and you really see some of the messed up stuff that happened. But before that, you run the risk of having people go, I didn't understand any of that, why was that there? Or the idea of, that was gross, ha ha ha,
Yeah.
which undercuts the entire point of why you have to show it.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I've found more difficult with visual media is not only communicating that, but communicating that in a way that doesn't undercut the severity in that moment, but then also making sure you follow up that scene or that chunk of choppy whatever with a scene that doesn't then immediately undercut everything that just happened. You can't follow that up immediately with humor, because then what just happened feels like it doesn't matter unless you do it really, really, really well. But
Saving
that's...
Private Ryan does that really well.
I have never seen Saving Private Ryan.
That's fair.
It's not. It's really not my deal.
So there's a point at the end of the movie where the crew that you are with is basically like it is their last stand moment. It's the point where the main character, the lieutenant, tells Ryan, you know, you have to live with this. You have to go on because you're the only one that can, you know, make this count. And it's that moment. But they're all getting wiped out. It's the end of that. And there is a scene where dude gets knifed, and it's slow and painful to watch because there's like a back and forth of like the gunfight, and then you know the two soldiers meet and they're like fighting it out hand to hand. It's hand to hand combat thing, and it's messy, and it is very, I don't want to say John Wick because it wasn't, but it's very brutal without being what's the term?
Self-gratuitous.
Oh, yeah, thank you. It's brutal without being self-gratuitous, right? Or being gratuitous in and of itself. There's a point to the hard, brawly violence.
Sure.
And when your main dude, the dude who you've been with through this 2-hour-long movie, gets knifed, it's not a I punch, you punch, punch, roll around the floor, stab, done. It is quite literally a holding the knife, holding him back, and it's a thing, right? And after it's done, the guy who died, the soldier who kills him gets up, sees his buddy, like sees the other dude there who is like gathering all the ammo and running the ammo back and forth, basically cowering in a corner, and instead of doing anything, he just looks at him and just walks off. Right? He lets him live, kind of thing. And immediately afterwards, it's the corporal who is firing his handgun because that's the only weapon, it's the only ammo he has, running out and then taking his helmet off and chucking it at someone before sitting down on a wall and taking a break. And it is very much a much needed little form of okay, yeah. That was needed. Oh boy, because going from a incredibly tense, incredibly dark scene of watching someone die pretty horrifically without being gratuitous, it's why I love the original Saw movie. The original, the first one. The other ones are kind of got off point, but the first one is really good at it. And then switching it and automatically turning it around to a yeah, we're all still in danger and we're all probably gonna die, but you know what? I don't have anything else but my helmet. So If it works, it works. If it doesn't, I'm gonna die anyway. Pink. Oh, it
Yeah.
worked. Cool. I can sit here for 10 seconds and go, what just happened?
Yeah. To get onto the topic of trauma not done quickly and not done the like sporadic, you know, clip,
Yeah.
clip, 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 clip. And I know you haven't seen it. I think you probably should. I think you'd enjoy it. In Doom Patrol,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
which I highly recommend with a stipulation to everybody. Little kid who's super excited.
Yo, Ryan!
Oh,
Oh, that's adorable.
that's so cute. Oh,
My heart.
oh. That's adorable. Oh my god. Oh god, that really just like makes me happy as a human being.
I
Anyway,
know, right?
so I heavily recommend Doom Patrol, but and it's a very good balance of dark humor and just dark. But
Is that the fuck Batman Doom Patrol, or is that something else? Is that the one where Robin is just like, fuck?
no,
Okay.
no, that's Titans,
That's Titans, okay.
I think.
Yeah, that's Titans. Okay.
Doom Patrol is very well done, but it is very heavy. And if you are not in the right headspace, Doom Patrol can be very bad for you.
Looking at you, Hannibal, the TV show.
Yep. I watched Doom Patrol with my roommates, who I love, and I'm very glad that I watched it with them. There is actually the scene that I'm about to talk about. I'm not gonna get into any details because I can't. But so there's a character in Doom Patrol called Crazy Jane. Already, her name doesn't translate super well. It didn't age super well, but they use it well in Doom Patrol in that it's not necessarily meant to have aged well. It's just kind of Crazy Jane has dissociative identity disorder. And Crazy Jane has 47, something like that, different identities. And each different identity has a different superpower. She's quite interesting. Yeah.
Hey, Legion.
I'll text my mother back in a minute. So each of her identities has a different superpower. There's one that literally just turns into a sun.
Like Sunspot? Just.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, nice.
There's one that, and I can't remember their name, but there's one that turns kind of like that character you were talking to me about from My Hero Academia, the one
Onomatopoeia guy?
Onomatopoeia, yeah. There's one that turns her words into literal weapons. Like when
Nice.
she speaks, her words form like metallic letters around her, and she can kill people with them, and it's sick as fuck.
That's probably, that's where
It's
My
the-
Hero got it.
Probably, and it's a much more scary version of what
Oh, yeah, no,
Onomatopoeia does.
manga in My Hero Academia is just like, kapow, and just kapow just shows up.
Yeah, no, she says stuff like, like, fuck off, you sick shit. And then she just grabs one of the letters and, like, stabs people with it. It's really cool. There's Hammerhead, who just has super strength. We love Hammerhead.
Man Shark.
But they all have very different superpowers and that kind of thing. One of them can mind control. She's a psychiatrist. She's terrifying. She's super scary. But over the course of, I think it's mostly season 1, you start to learn why Crazy Jane has DID. And we're not going to get into it because it's super heavy, super dark. Yeah.
I can guess.
It's probably what you think it is.
Okay.
If you want to ask later, we can talk about it, but I don't want to talk about it on stream.
Yeah, no. Just look it up. Just.
Yeah. Google it. It'll tell you.
Yeah.
So when you get to the scene, so basically Crazy Jane gets stuck in her head, and the place where all of her altars occupy is called the Underground, and it's a subway station, basically. There's literally a subway that takes you from the inner consciousness to the outer consciousness, and there is an identity who only operates the subway. That's all that they do. The Underground is fascinating. Yeah.
Yep, I was right. Okay.
Yeah.
Most DID kind of
Has something to do with that, yeah.
To do with that.
Yeah. I just don't really want to... Full disclosure on stream. So I think it's the end of season 1. Jane gets stuck in the Underground. And nobody else is fronting. They're just all in the Underground. And Jane basically has to go confront the reason that she has DID head on. She doesn't really get a choice. Because it's that or be stuck forever, basically. And that scene, they never tell you what happened to Jane. They show you, which is not, I mean, they don't show the exact moment, but they show you the pieces of it, and they show you why puzzle pieces are super triggering for her, which is also super.
I was about to say, as I was reading, I
Yeah,
saw that
the
like
puzzle pieces.
were there.
Which also, DID, it's a really interesting kind of combination of imagery and ideas. But you start to learn why Jane has DID, and you start to learn what caused it, and then what continued the trauma and continued to fracture her into pieces. Because once you have DID, the further trauma you experience, the more your brain will fracture off pieces of your personality to separate off different kinds of trauma, for anybody who doesn't know. Yay. It's really, really sad. It's really interesting to look up objectively, but it's really, really sad. So the fight scene against the big bad of that is terrifying. It is drawn out. It is very, very long. It's not a quick, like, she wins the fight and it's done kind of deal. It is a very long fight. And it is her and someone else. And it eventually, I mean, she wins and she overcomes it, but it takes a lot of time, and it takes going up against this person who is literally like 50 times her size. And that scene and that whole episode, and every time they talk about Jane's trauma, gets really heavy and really complicated, but it's very well done, and it's very well handled most of the time. And all trauma of that capacity really is in that show, and honestly, if you want to watch it's a maintenance. If you want to watch a TV show that handles trauma very, very well, but is dark, so, like, seriously, watch it in a good headspace. But if you... Maintenance! Look at her! Oh, she does not want to be there. Look at her. It's a kitty cat. She looks so elegant and so annoyed at the exact same time.
Well, I mean,
I know.
elegant fury.
I highly, highly, highly recommend. Uh, s- I was gonna call it Suicide Squad. That's not it. Doom Patrol, to anyone who wants to watch a TV show that talks about many, many different kinds of trauma, and there's queer trauma involved in it as well. Um, there's a character who was queer during World War II, but was married and had kids, and was closeted, but was in love with somebody, and it was a whole thing. Um, there's queer trauma, there's like physical trauma, there's lots and lots of mental trauma. There's a character whose brain was literally put inside a robot because he got decapitated. Well, the top of his head came clean off. It wasn't quite decapitation. He basically got scalped. And it's a whole thing. But yeah, if you want to watch a show that handles trauma very well and does a lot of what we've kind of talked about in terms of handling trauma and heavy emotional topics in artistic and also just kind of respectful ways, 10 out of 10 recommend. Just make sure that you're not in a bad headspace when you start it, because oh boy. But also Alan Tudyk as the main villain of season 1. It's a time. There's also a sentient street,
That makes sense.
Danny the Street, who is incredible. We love Danny.
The Street.
Uh-huh.
I'm in. I'm in. Fucking let's
Danny
go.
the Street
Danny
at one
the Street.
point was Danny the Alley. As he's
So
grown
he
up,
grew
he's
in
become
power.
he's as he's
grown-
grown up, he's grown through different yeah.
Would he be like Danny the Interstate when he's at his final form?
Danny the State? I don't know. Maybe.
Well, it's gotta be like a road-based thing, right?
I-
Like you go from like an
Yeah.
alley to a street to like a highway to an interstate.
Shit, maybe. I have no idea. Danny regresses to Danny the Brick at one point.
Is he an actual brick?
Yeah. It's a whole thing.
Comic books, everyone.
Yeah, actual comic character.
Comic books, yeah.
Actually, Danny uses they them pronouns. Fun fact, heavily emphasized in the show.
That makes sense.
Danny is a he they, I think. It's a very queer centric episode, unsurprisingly. It's quite interesting. There's a drag queen who
Nice.
used to be like a military enforcer.
Nice. Perfect.
This is just gonna turn into me super hyping up Doom Patrol, which is a lot of fun. It's also a really good example of characters who do good things with not necessarily good intentions,
That's a move.
and characters who do good things for selfish reasons and still expect things to work out for them in the right way and that kind of thing. It's really well done and really interesting. So, 10 out of 10 recommend. Trying to think.
Kind of gets onto the topic that like we were talking about before the stream was just like, and again I won't go into like full details because the show's not done yet. But Attack on Titan does that fantastically well fantastic as well. I was gonna say fantastically well as well, but that sounds wrong. in
It's a
my
bit
head for
redundant.
some reason. It's a little redundant. In the fact that Isayama is very, very good at setting up the ramifications of trauma
Mm-hmm.
and then the aftermath of, and I'm trying to do this as spoiler free as I
Mm-hmm.
can, because the manga is done but the show is not, and I know a lot of people watch the show, so
Yeah.
he's very, very good at like setting up trauma, and then once you have overcome that trauma, realizing that you haven't really overcome it, and it's probably going to be a lifelong thing that you have to continuously work on. it is also incredibly good at, like you said with Doom Patrol, of setting up characters who are doing bad things for the right reasons, and then making sure that you know that the people you thought were the enemies are very much in the same boat of doing the right things, right, doing wrong things for what you consider the right reasons, and the duality of that argument and the understanding that that argument is meaningless.
Yeah.
Because, again, everyone is the hero of their own story. Right?
Yep. Ooh. Where's Michael when you need him?
Yeah. So, you go through, with Attack on Titan, you go through the 104th, which is, Eren and Mikasa and all of them. You go through stories and years with them, and then you find out something, and instead of going back to them and kind of going through their eyes, seeing the other side of the coin, he just makes new characters that are in that situation but on the opposite side, and then being like, this is what they're thinking and this is how they're going about things. And you know what? It's the same thought of your heroes, but you're saying those are the bad guys, but your heroes are doing the same thing. So what's the difference?
Yeah. Also, good morning, Rebecca. Hello. Welcome.
Rebecca!
Actually, question for you since you're here and lurking the stream. Are you going to your mom's tonight, or are you staying here? Just curiosity question. Yeah, another one that we could both talk about for a while that does trauma. Interestingly, X-Men.
Oh god, that whole series is about trauma in one way or another.
Yep. And I could talk about the X-Men and trauma and the trauma that their trauma can represent, and the queer and the queer implications and the marginalized community implications and all of that shit forever. I have lots of feelings. We all know this about me. But particularly, I guess, looking at Wolverine and the way that they handle his and the flashbacks that we get in the second movie and even in the first one, and what?
Wigglebutt is fighting with someone. I just hear her
Big
growling
Bork?
and barking. No, I think she might be with Sky or Rayman. I'm not sure.
Fair enough.
All I hear is her vocalizations because she apparently has picked up Mia's vocalizations when they've never met, but through the ether, Mia has just been like, "You will get my vocalizations now."
Yo, Caroline remained 22. Number 2.
Yo, Caroline roommate number 2.
Oh, God.
There's Michael.
Hi, Michael. You missed the part where we talked about everybody's the hero of their own story.
Isn't that like Michael's whole bag?
I mean, it's what we talked about in Overwatch for fucking ever. Speaking of which, we still need to do Overwatch Chat Part 2.
Yeah, we do.
I also need to do Danny Stream Part 2.
Yeah, you do.
Unfortunately, next Friday I am doing early Father's Day with my family, so I will be not streaming. Yeah. Checking routine game while also watching how attention span
It's satisfied.
Good. I'm glad that your attention span is satisfied.
Also, Michael, I just clicked over just to make sure that the Overwatch League thing was happening, and all I saw was a confusing Fate and them talking about Fate of the Shanghai Dragons, and I'm like, that's really, oh boy, oh.
Is there only one game tonight, or are there?
There are 2 or 3.
Cool.
Because you have to it's the people that won versus each other, and then the people that lost versus each other, and then yeah, it's weird.
So let's find out when their game's night. Sorry guys for the derailing of the topic.
The system is weird. It's ugh. But I mean, when you only have how many teams, you have to come up with a fucked system to make sure it's 3 days long.
Okay. So.
Because it's like the people that got into it all fight each other, and then the winners from those fight each other's, but the losers fight each other, and then the winners from both of those fight each other's in the grand
So,
finale. It's a.
It's 9 o'clock, and then 10:30, and then midnight.
Gotcha. Danny out here got some guns on him. Why is it all the Overwatch casters are like?
Oh,
fit?
and then there's more tomorrow, obviously. Okay. Anywho,
But I can't say anything. There's a fucking Dallas Fuel player that has like sleeves, and you're just like, you never would have known because you never see his arms.
that's fair. You did derail things slightly, but that's okay.
That's just my fault. So
Honestly, my brain is kind of running on fumes a little bit, which is unfortunate. But I've been awake since 10, which is unusual for me. So,
Outcasters are pretty and it's not fair.
that's fair. I am only familiar with like 5 of the Owlcasters, but still.
Zoe is the best, and no one can fight her.
I don't have enough information to fight you on it, so I'm not even gonna try. Yeah, my brain is struggling a little bit. We can do this again for sure sometime,
Yeah.
because
this was
I'm
fun.
having a lot of fun with this.
Yeah.
Just maybe not on a day that I wake up at 10 a.m. and am still running. My body just wouldn't let me go back to sleep.
Oh.
It was gross. And then I called my mom, and then you got the rundown of my whole day. But video won't play for me. It could be, if you're on mobile, it could be a mobile issue, because that happens for me a lot. Specifically with his stream. Oh, there it is. Okay. Well, hi. You showed up pretty much right at the end, actually.
You did the thing.
But we are. Yeah, I got an okay amount of sleep, but not enough, and so my brain's shutting down a little bit. But I will not be around to stream next Friday. I might do some streaming sometime. Like, I'm off Wednesday through Friday, so.
Another part of that stream. Talk to Danny about doing
a Wednesday Caroline edition? Maybe. Could be fun. Yeah, I might do something with Danny. I'm also free Sunday afternoon, so I might do some kind of stream Sunday afternoon. I have a thing Sunday early for me. Several of us do, as a matter of fact. We are prepping for something that will be going on Danny's channel in the not so distant future.
Wait.
So.
Sunday out, guns out,
Oh my god. Honestly,
Huckleberry.
we might be doing some more, or I might be doing some more Overwatch streaming anyway, because that's a lot of what I do in my free time right now. Thank you, Michael, for being around for that. So yeah, I guess.
I've been playing for 7 weeks and already at like
122.
level 100.
No, 123.
Yeah. 123. There it is.
Kyle is to blame for me starting. You're the one who's been around when I play a lot of the time. So,
We're not sorry. I speak for Michael and the trees when we say we're not sorry.
I know. Hide's in level 4. No. No hide. It's fun. I just
Speak for the
had a
trees.
lot of...
I don't know if that's a compliment or whatever. It's all dependent on the trees. I love that sound so much, by the way.
So I'll have to drag you back at some point, Ari. I would love to play with Ari. I think it would be fun. We should do with Ari what we did with me and just throw a bunch of us into a workshop and have Ari practice aiming at us, because that was so fun. That was fun for me when I was the one doing the practicing, and I think it would be fun as well with everybody and Ari. If Ari's interested.
Ari becomes a Zenyatta main and just headshots everybody.
We don't shoot back, it's just you trying to shoot us, and us being annoying. Every now and then, one of them would shoot me back, but it was like a one-off. Anyway. We'll probably do some more Overwatch streaming at some point coming up soon. I have several days off next week. I also have a job interview next week.
Hey!
Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Disgusting. But yeah, so my schedule may be freeing up / changing sometime in the not-so-distant future. I don't know yet. We'll just have to see. But anywho, thank you guys. Huh?
I said my schedule is definitely going to be changing.
Yes,
I
it
will be
is.
working Monday through Thursday.
Yes. So you should go back to streaming though, so that I can have something to listen to when I work.
Each sure.
With Kyle.
It will be on like really weird days. Well, not weird days, probably, but I have to figure out how that'll work.
Touche. But anyway, I may put out a poll and see if you guys want to do a deep dive next week, or if you want to do game streaming or what. But I will let you guys know when I throw that out on Twitter. And thank you guys so much for being around and hanging out with us. It was a lot of fun. And for letting us ramble. I honestly think that Kyle and I should just talk about the Marvel tabletop RPG sometime, because I have lots of feelings about that, and I know he does as well. We could probably rope some other people into it. Yeah. So thank you guys so much for sticking around for 2 hours of me and Kyle yelling and getting derailed. Oh, did you miss that, Ari? Oh my god. Okay, so...
Oh boy.
There's going to be... It's in the process of production right now.
Mada.
And writing. Mada.
Mada.
So it's a Marvel tabletop RPG where you get to play Marvel superheroes and or create your own superheroes and go up against there it is. Yep. Marvel Multiverse tabletop role-playing game in 2022.
I'll be Tracer.
I'm already Tracer.
What about Widowmaker?
I'm already Widowmaker.
I'll be Bastion.
Nerf Bastion.
You're Renzo Winston.
I wanna be Winston.
I guess I'll be Genji.
I'm already Genji.
Then I'll be McCree.
I already chose McCree.
I have an idea.
What's your idea?
You should be.
I'm not gonna be Chris.
Thank you. I don't know how to... Yeah, we have very mixed... Or when we discussed it before, we also both had very mixed feelings. It could be really cool. It could also be really bad. The fact that they're creating their own system worries me a lot. I also love that sound a lot, so thank you for continuously playing it for me. It brings me a lot of joy. It's the equivalent...
Is this your version of Crab Rave?
I was just about to say, it's my equivalent
Yeah.
to Crab Rave for Kyle. So, anyway. Yeah, it could be really cool. It could also be an absolute train wreck. We really have no idea what it's going to look like. They're creating their own system. We think it's going to be a D6 based system, but we don't know for sure. So, give it to Kyle and see how he can break it. He
So
and I
we were talking, we were talking about that actually, where it's just like the the basis of just got a stat block from Ari for an evil chicken. Yes, yes. Did you create the evil chicken?
Jesus Christ.
Yes, I'm all for it. But going back to Ari's whole thing of like give it to Kyle and see if he can break it. My whole thing, and like Caroline and I talked about it, is the basis of a lot of RPGs, especially like tabletop RPGs, is how do you balance certain things? And like even D&D had this issue of
Do not make me find the goat.
yeah, do not make me find the goat. That is scary. Or the cat. Ari knows what I'm talking about. The cat.
One goat is trivial for our party.
I think it was 20 that was deadly.
Jesus
Smooth.
Christ.
They had a D&D had an issue of like linear martial and then quadratic wizards, where at a certain point any of your spellcasters became god tier, and your martial classes would just be like, I walk up and I swing my sword.
Swing at the hammer.
I swing a hammer. Where the spellcasters would be flexing on them haters.
Sucky suck.
Lucky suck. And my issue, my main issue with the Marvel tabletop RPG is what is going to be the balancing between a character like Daredevil or Frank Castle compared to a Jean Grey or an Iceman. Because at a certain point in time, Iceman could destroy the Punisher in every way. Because the Punisher has a 50-year time span, whatever, and he became something far greater than what he was at the beginning. But he's still just a dude who has a military training and a military background. Compared to Iceman, who is just like, I freeze you at the quantum level. What is going to be the balancing in that RPG? And that is my biggest concern.
Yeah.
Because how do you... Because they even talked about it in their write-up. What is it? It's like Spider-Man, Black, packed with illustrations, playtest rules... but you can create characters like Spider-Man, Black Panther, Captain America, Thor, Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, Wolverine, Storm, and many more.
None of those are... Yeah.
All of those are high-level superheroes and mutants. So what's the balancing going to be like? Because, boy howdy, that's going to be a tie.
Yeah. Which is actually the conversation that ultimately led to this topic that we ended up with here. The balancing act, because some of those characters are not very much well given the powers. Yeah, so what we initially discussed was give just all of the, like, Jean Grey and similarly tiered characters to begin with, and work out the more detailed iterations of your like martial classes and stuff later, so that you can then throw in Frank Castle and characters like that, or just let it be homebrew. But don't try to do both all in the first beginning. Let there be expansions. Let there be other core books like there is with D&D and with Vampire. Let there be a Camarilla book. So let there be an X-Men book, and let there be an Avengers book, and let there be a New York book. Or, like, however you choose to do that. Yeah. So that you have the opportunity to expand your rules and your ideas outside of just the first iteration. Because also that's a better way to make money.
And Marvel's really good at it. So.
Marvel thinks they're
yeah,
really
like,
good at making money.
I mean, they are. They're making billions. Whatever it is, it's working. But yeah, it's gonna be one of those weird things of just being like, okay, everyone, make your characters. All right, I'm gonna make an Omega level mutant. I make a dude who got blinded at childhood that can punch really good.
Right.
How are those two going to be in the same group?
There
and
has
do
to be
well?
some kind of leveling out. 2023 superhero campaign with Marvel System Finding.
Samaj-
Actually, Kyle and I were talking. That conversation then led to me talking about our superhero campaign. And once I have a better idea of how my schedule is going to learn, work, and function, and if it's changing and all that, we may be looking at starting up the superhero campaign again. I'm working on some background building stuff again. So, yeah, it's not as far off as 2023, but it's not going to be like next week. I got some shit to work on, so we'll see how all that goes. What?
Torbjorn.
Oh my god. Torbjorn meta.
Torbjorn meta. Let's go.
But anyway, I am going to close us out so I can go make food as well because I'm starting to get hungry.
Is it tacos?
It is time for tacos. Yes.
Tacos.
So
I
thank you.
see, Michael. My soul, like, because I'm a Dallas fan, is just like, nah, Dallas all the way. Dallas wins everything. But the person who likes watching the Overwatch League is just like, please nerf Dallas. Please nerf my boys. Like, get it, burn blue, let's go. But also, okay, you burned enough. You're burning the entire
They're playing
town
against
down.
the Rain tonight, right?
Yeah, that's a good age.
In my soul, I kind of have to vote, have to cheer for the Rain, just a little.
I'm cheering for the Rain. I am. I honestly don't care who wins that match.
That's fair.
But at the same time, I'm hoping the Rain wins it. And if they don't, I'm just like, yay, Dallas gets to be in the finals again. But also, I'm like, you burned hot enough, my dudes. Let's let someone else have the shields up. I mean, what?
Oh,
No, what
God.
was it, Michael? Wings out.
Oh god. Okay. Well, we're gonna call it Dallas Rain, Dragons, New York. I think the losers play. Yeah, the losers most likely do play tonight. That's probably the midnight match.
Wings up and shield. There you go.
So I'm gonna go make tacos, and I'll be back around for watching/pew later if anybody wants to pew.
Yep.
So anywho, everybody, thank you so much for being here. And for listening to us ramble about everything under the sun, as we do. I am going to start uploading the deep dives to YouTube a couple days after we do them, or at least I'm going to try to. So if you miss the stream and you don't feel like trying to deal with it on Twitch, I will be uploading them to YouTube. So if you guys have any interest in watching there as well, I will start to tweet them and link them and all that shit. So thank you guys so much for being here, for supporting us and our rambling, and me and my rambling. And I will see you guys sometime next week. Alrighty. Everybody make sure that you drink your water, take your meds, eat your food, go make food if you need to make food, or order food if you need to order food. And I will see you guys sometime on the flip side. Bye!